Dr. Marcus Chen had always believed that discovery happened in quiet moments. Standing in his cramped laboratory aboard the research station orbiting Kepler 442b, he watched the alien artifact pulse with an ethereal blue light. 3 months of careful analysis had revealed nothing about its purpose, but Marcus refused to give up. His colleagues called him obsessive, but Marcus preferred the term dedicated. The artifact was roughly the size of a human skull, crystalline in structure and completely unlike anything in the galactic database. It had been found buried beneath 2 kilometers of ice on the planet below. And somehow it had ended up in his lab because nobody else wanted to deal with what they assumed was just another dead piece of alien technology. Marcus adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to his workstation. The spectral analysis showed energy patterns that defied conventional physics. The crystal seemed to bend space-time around itself in microscopic ways, creating tiny distortions that his instruments could barely detect. Whatever this thing was, it represented technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered in their short time among the stars. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his lab. Marcus frowned. It was well past the station's night cycle, and most of the crew would be asleep or off duty. He glanced at the security monitor and saw a figure in maintenance coveralls standing outside. The person wore a hood that obscured their face, which struck Marcus as odd, since the station maintained a comfortable temperature throughout. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked through the intercom. "Ventilation system maintenance," came the reply in a voice that sounded slightly distorted through the speaker. "Scheduled for tonight. Should only take a few minutes." Marcus checked his schedule. There was no maintenance listed, but that wasn't unusual. The station's bureaucracy was notorious for poor communication between departments. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to let the person in. After all, what harm could a maintenance worker do? The door slid open with a quiet hiss and the figure stepped inside. Marcus turned back to his work, trusting that the maintenance person would do their job without disturbing his research. He was deep in thought, analyzing the latest energy readings when he heard an unusual sound behind him. It was a soft whistling noise, like air escaping from a pressurized container. Marcus turned around and found himself staring at something that definitely wasn't human. The maintenance coveralls had been discarded, revealing a tall, slender figure with pale blue skin and large black eyes. In its hand was a weapon that looked like a cross between a pistol and a tuning fork, currently aimed directly at Marcus's chest. "Dr. Marcus Chen," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice carried an odd harmonic quality that made Marcus's skin crawl. "You have been selected for termination." Marcus's mind raced. This was clearly some kind of alien assassin, but why would anyone want to kill him? He was just a researcher, hardly important enough to warrant an assassination. His hands were raised instinctively, but his eyes kept darting to the artifact on his workstation. "Wait," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm nobody important. I just study alien technology." The assassin's large black eyes seemed to study him with curiosity. "You are Dr. Marcus Chen, xenoarchaeologist and theoretical physicist currently assigned to Research Station Galileo 7? "Yes, but then there is no mistake. The hegemony has decided that your research poses a threat to galactic stability. You must be eliminated." Marcus felt his legs go weak. The hegemony was the closest thing to a galactic government that existed, a loose confederation of advanced alien species that barely tolerated humanity's presence in space. If they wanted him dead, it meant his research had somehow attracted their attention in a very bad way. "What research?" Marcus asked desperately. "I've never published anything that could threaten anyone. I study dead artifacts." The assassin tilted its head, a gesture that somehow managed to be both alien and oddly familiar. "You currently possess a Class 7 forbidden artifact. Your species lacks the wisdom to handle such technology safely." Marcus's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The artifact on his workstation wasn't just some random piece of alien technology. It was something significant, something dangerous enough that the hegemony was willing to commit murder to keep it out of human hands. "I don't even know what it does," Marcus protested. "I've been studying it for months and I can't figure out its purpose." "Ignorance is not a defense," the assassin replied. "Your species' tendency toward reckless experimentation is well documented. The artifact must be secured and all research data destroyed." Marcus looked at the alien weapon, pointed at him, and made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of begging for his life, he found himself getting angry. Here was potentially the greatest discovery in human history, and this alien wanted to take it away simply because humanity might be too reckless to handle it. "You know what?" Marcus said, straightening up despite the weapon aimed at him. "I'm getting really tired of being treated like a child. Humanity has been in space for barely 50 years, and every alien species we meet acts like we're going to accidentally blow up the galaxy." The assassin's head tilted further, clearly not expecting this response. "We've made mistakes." "Sure," Marcus continued, warming to his topic. "But we've also achieved things that supposedly advanced species said were impossible. We went from wooden sailing ships to faster-than-light travel in less than 500 years. Maybe instead of trying to kill me, you could try explaining why this artifact is so dangerous." For a long moment, the assassin said nothing. Its large black eyes seemed to be studying Marcus with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Finally, it spoke. "Your reaction is unexpected. Most species would be begging for mercy by now. Most species probably haven't spent their entire lives being told they're not ready for the universe." Marcus replied. "I'm a scientist. I want to understand things, not destroy them. If this artifact is dangerous, help me understand why." The assassin lowered its weapon slightly, and Marcus dared to hope that he might actually survive the next few minutes. What he didn't know was that this particular assassin had been having doubts about its mission from the moment it received the assignment. The hegemony's orders were clear, but something about killing an unarmed researcher in his own laboratory felt wrong, even to a professional killer. "You wish to understand," the assassin said slowly. "This is also unexpected." The assassin's weapon remained lowered as it studied Marcus with those unnervingly large black eyes. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft humming of the research station's life support systems and the occasional pulse of light from the mysterious artifact. "My designation is Zix-9, the assassin finally said. "I am of the species you call the Kethvar, though we prefer the term the Silent Ones. I have been tasked with your elimination for 17 standard days." Marcus blinked in surprise. 17 days? You've been watching me for over 2 weeks? Observation is standard protocol before termination. We must ensure that the target poses the threat described in our briefing. Zix-9 paused, its head tilting in that strangely familiar way. "Your behavior patterns are inconsistent with the profile we were given." "What kind of profile?" "Human researchers are described as reckless, aggressive, and prone to dangerous experimentation without regard for consequences. The hegemony's xenopsychology department painted your species as impulsive children, playing with weapons they cannot comprehend." Marcus felt his anger flare again. "And what did you observe instead?" Zix-9 moved closer to the workstation, its movements fluid and eerily silent. "You have handled the artifact with extreme caution. You run the same non-invasive tests repeatedly, rather than attempting to force it open or subject it to destructive analysis. You maintain detailed safety protocols and have not once attempted to activate unknown functions." "Because that would be stupid," Marcus said flatly. "You don't poke unknown alien technology with a stick and hope for the best. Yet this is precisely what the hegemony believes humans would do." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process the fact that he was having a rational conversation with someone who had come here to kill him. "The hegemony doesn't know us very well, do they?" "It would appear not." Zix-9 set its weapon down on the workstation, a gesture that made Marcus's heart skip a beat. "Tell me about your research methods, Dr. Chen. Help me understand why you work alone in this laboratory while your colleagues study more conventional subjects." Marcus looked at the alien assassin, trying to gauge whether this was some kind of trick. Zix-9's expression was unreadable, but something about its posture suggested genuine curiosity rather than deception. "I work alone because most of my colleagues think I'm wasting time," Marcus said slowly. "They want to study technology they can understand and potentially reverse engineer. Things that could have immediate practical applications. But I'm more interested in the mysteries, the artifacts that don't make sense, the ones that challenge our understanding of physics or biology or chemistry. This crystal, for example." Marcus gestured toward the pulsing artifact. "It's been driving me crazy for months because it shouldn't be possible. The energy signature suggests it's somehow folding space-time, but on such a small scale that it shouldn't have any practical effect. It's like finding a machine designed to count individual atoms. Zix-9 moved closer to the artifact, studying it with obvious interest. You have no theory about its purpose? I have dozens of theories, but none of them make sense. It could be a sensor, a communication device, a storage medium, or something completely outside our frame of reference. That's what makes it fascinating. Marcus paused, watching the alien's reaction. What can you tell me about it? The hegemony classifies it as a Class 7 forbidden artifact. Such devices are considered too dangerous for younger species to possess. But why? What does it actually do? Zix-9 was quiet for a long moment, its large eyes fixed on the pulsing crystal. I do not know. Assassins are not briefed on the specific functions of the technology we are sent to secure. We are simply told that it represents a threat. Marcus stared at the alien in disbelief. You came here to kill me over an artifact and you don't even know what it does? The hegemony's wisdom is not questioned. If they declare something dangerous, it is dangerous. That's not wisdom, that's blind obedience. Marcus's voice rose with frustration. You're telling me that an entire galactic government makes decisions based on classifications that nobody understands? Zix-9's head tilted again, and Marcus was beginning to recognize the gesture as a sign of confusion or uncertainty. You question the hegemony's authority? I question everything. That's what scientists do. We ask why things work the way they do, and we don't accept because I said so as an answer. Marcus moved closer to his workstation, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. Look at these readings. The artifact is generating a stable microsingularity, but instead of collapsing or expanding, it maintains perfect equilibrium. That suggests a level of technological sophistication that's almost incomprehensible. You sound excited about this. Of course I'm excited. This is possibly the most advanced piece of technology ever discovered. Even if we can't replicate it, studying it could teach us things about physics that we never imagined possible. Zix-9 picked up one of Marcus's data tablets and scrolled through the research notes. Your observations are remarkably detailed. You have documented every energy fluctuation, every structural anomaly, every interaction with external stimuli. That's how science works. You observe, you record, you analyze, you form hypotheses, and then you test them carefully. You don't just grab something and start pushing buttons. The hegemony believes humans lack the patience for proper scientific methodology. Marcus laughed, though there was no humor in it. The hegemony has been watching too many bad movies about humans. Yes, we can be impulsive sometimes, but we're also capable of incredible patience when it comes to understanding something important. I've been studying this artifact for 3 months without making a single attempt to modify or activate it. 3 months is considered patient by human standards? For a discovery this significant? Some of my colleagues have spent decades studying single artifacts. Dr. Yamamoto on Earth has been analyzing a piece of crystallized energy for 40 years. She's published over 200 papers on its properties, and she still won't attempt to extract a sample for analysis because she's not certain it's safe. Zix-9 set down the tablet and looked directly at Marcus. This contradicts everything we have been told about human nature. Maybe it's time to question what you've been told. Marcus met the alien's gaze steadily. Your people made the decision to kill me based on assumptions about my species that are apparently wrong. Doesn't that bother you? For the first time since entering the laboratory, Zix-9 seemed genuinely uncertain. Its large eyes blinked slowly, and when it spoke, its voice carried a note of something that might have been doubt. Assassins are not trained to question orders. We are weapons, pointed at targets deemed necessary to eliminate. But you're not just a weapon, Marcus said softly. You're an intelligent being capable of independent thought. You've spent 17 days observing me, and what you observed doesn't match what you were told to expect. That has to mean something. Zix-9 stared at the artifact, its pale blue skin seeming to grow even paler. If the hegemony's assessment of human behavior is incorrect, then perhaps their assessment of this artifact's danger is also flawed. There's only one way to find out, Marcus said. Help me study it properly. Zix-9 stared at Marcus for what felt like an eternity. The alien's large black eyes seemed to be processing something far more complex than the simple decision of whether to complete its assassination mission. Finally, it spoke in a voice that carried an unmistakable note of uncertainty. You propose that we work together? A human and a Kethvar assassin? I propose that we figure out the truth, Marcus replied. You came here believing I was a threat to galactic stability. I've been working here believing I was conducting harmless research. One of us is wrong, and the only way to find out which one is to actually understand what this artifact does. Zix-9 moved around the workstation, examining Marcus's equipment with obvious interest. The alien's movements were graceful in a way that suggested perfect control over every muscle. Yet there was something almost hesitant about its exploration of the human technology. I have never collaborated with another species, Zix-9 admitted. The Kethvar are trained for solitary missions. We observe, we analyze, we act, we do not discuss. Well, you're discussing now, Marcus pointed out, and you're asking questions instead of just following orders. That suggests you're capable of a lot more than your training taught you. Zix-9 picked up one of Marcus's scanning devices, turning it over in its long, slender fingers. This instrument reads quantum fluctuations? Among other things. It's designed to detect energy patterns without interfering with them. Non-invasive analysis is crucial when dealing with unknown technology. Marcus moved to stand beside the alien, noting that Zix-9 was nearly a foot taller than him, but somehow didn't seem threatening anymore. What kind of technology do the Kethvar use for similar purposes? We do not study artifacts, we destroy them, or secure them for the hegemony's archives. That seems wasteful. Surely your people must be curious about how things work? Zix-9 set down the scanner and looked at Marcus with what might have been surprise. Curiosity is considered a dangerous trait among my people. It leads to questioning, and questioning leads to chaos. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. Curiosity is what drives progress. Without it, we'd still be living in caves and hunting with sticks. Perhaps that would be safer. Safer, maybe, but hardly fulfilling. Don't you want to understand the universe around you? Don't you wonder why things work the way they do? Zix-9 was quiet for a long moment, its gaze fixed on the pulsing artifact. I have wondered about many things, it finally said. But wondering is not permitted. It's permitted here, Marcus said gently. In fact, it's encouraged. So what do you wonder about? The alien's head tilted in that familiar gesture of uncertainty. I wonder why the hegemony fears human curiosity so deeply that they would order the assassination of a lone researcher. I wonder why they classify artifacts without studying them thoroughly. I wonder why questioning orders is considered treasonous when it might prevent mistakes. Marcus felt a surge of sympathy for the alien assassin. Those are all excellent questions, and the fact that you're asking them suggests that maybe the Kethvar aren't as different from humans as your leaders believe. The hegemony teaches that humans are dangerous because they refuse to accept limits. They push boundaries without considering consequences. Sometimes that's true, Marcus admitted. But sometimes refusing to accept limits is the only way to discover that the limits were arbitrary in the first place. He gestured toward the artifact. For example, the hegemony has classified this as forbidden technology. But what if it's actually something beneficial? What if it's a medical device or a communication tool or a work of art? We'll never know if we just destroy it without understanding it. Zix-9 moved closer to the artifact, its large eyes reflecting the blue light that pulsed from within the crystal. You truly believe this device might be harmless? I believe it might be anything. That's why I study it instead of making assumptions. Marcus pulled up his data files on the workstation's main screen. Look at this. These are 3 months of continuous readings. The artifact maintains perfect stability in every measurement I can take. Its energy output is consistent, its structural integrity is flawless, and it shows no signs of degradation or instability. It appears to be well engineered. Exactly. Whatever civilization created this, they built it to last. They built it to be safe. That doesn't sound like the work of people who were creating a weapon or a dangerous experiment. Zix-9 studied the data readouts with obvious fascination. These patterns are remarkably complex. How do you interpret them? Marcus pulled up another screen showing his analysis software. This is where it gets interesting. The energy patterns aren't random. They follow mathematical sequences that suggest some kind of information encoding. It's almost like the artifact is constantly transmitting data, but the signal is so subtle that our equipment can barely detect it. Transmitting to what? That's the question I've been trying to answer for months. There's no obvious receiver, no corresponding device that might be listening for its signal, but the patterns are definitely too complex to be accidental. Marcus paused, looking at his alien companion. What kind of long-range communication technology do the HFY use? Quantum entanglement networks primarily. Instantaneous communication across any distance. Interesting. This artifact seems to be manipulating quantum fields, but on a much more sophisticated level than anything we've encountered. What if it's not just communicating? What if it's doing something else entirely? Zix-9 leaned closer to the screen, its pale blue skin taking on a faint luminescence in the artifact's glow. You suggest it might be performing multiple functions simultaneously? Or one function that's so advanced we can't recognize it? Think about it this way. If you showed a cell phone to someone from 500 years ago, they wouldn't understand that it was a communication device. They might think it was a weapon or a religious artifact or a piece of art. An interesting analogy. You believe our understanding of this artifact might be similarly limited? I think our understanding of everything is limited. That's why we keep studying, keep asking questions, keep pushing boundaries, because every answer we find leads to 10 new questions, and some of those questions change everything we thought we knew about the universe. Zix-9 straightened up and turned to face Marcus directly. Dr. Chen, I must confess something to you. During my 17 days of observation, I have experienced uncertainty about my mission. Watching you work, seeing your careful methodology and genuine respect for the unknown, has caused me to question the hegemony's assessment of your species. What kind of uncertainty? I begin to suspect that the hegemony's fear of humanity stems not from your recklessness but from your potential. A species that asks questions might eventually ask the right questions. A species that refuses to accept arbitrary limits might discover that some of those limits were designed to maintain power rather than ensure safety. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. This was dangerous territory they were entering, but it was also the most important conversation he'd ever had. You think the hegemony is afraid of human curiosity because it might threaten their authority? I think the hegemony is afraid of change, and your species represents change incarnate. Zix-9 picked up its weapon from the workstation, and for a moment Marcus tensed, but the alien simply deactivated it and set it aside. Dr. Chen, I believe I would like to help you study this artifact. Perhaps together we can discover whether the hegemony's fears are justified. Marcus smiled for the first time since the alien had entered his laboratory. I thought you'd never ask. Working with Zix-9 proved to be unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The HFY possessed sensory capabilities that human technology couldn't match, able to detect electromagnetic fluctuations and quantum variations that Marcus's instruments could barely register. More importantly, Zix-9 brought a completely different perspective to the analysis, one unencumbered by human assumptions about how technology should work. The resonance patterns are shifting, Zix-9 observed, its large eyes fixed on the artifact as they worked through their 4th hour together. Every 3.7 minutes there is a subtle change in the harmonic frequency. Marcus checked his instruments and frowned. My equipment isn't picking that up. Are you sure? HFY auditory perception extends far beyond human ranges. The artifact is producing sounds that your species cannot hear. Zix-9 tilted its head, listening intently. It almost sounds like what? Like music. Complex, layered, beautiful music. Marcus stared at the alien in amazement. Music? Are you saying this artifact is some kind of instrument? Perhaps. Or perhaps music is simply how my brain interprets patterns too complex for conscious analysis. Zix-9 moved closer to the artifact, its pale blue skin seeming to pulse in rhythm with the crystal's glow. There is something else. The quantum field fluctuations you detected earlier, they are not random. They follow the same mathematical progressions as the sound patterns. Marcus pulled up his analysis software and began correlating the data. If you're right, then we're looking at a device that operates on multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Sound, light, electromagnetic radiation, quantum fields, all synchronized into a single unified pattern. What could require such complexity? I don't know, but I'm starting to think we've been approaching this all wrong. We've been trying to figure out what the artifact does, but maybe we should be asking what it's trying to say. Zix-9's head tilted in that familiar gesture of curiosity. You believe it is attempting to communicate? Think about it. You said it sounds like music. I've detected information patterns. It's manipulating multiple types of energy in synchronized patterns. What if it's not a tool or a weapon? What if it's a message? A message from whom? Whoever built it. And considering how sophisticated this thing is, that was probably a civilization far more advanced than either of our species. Marcus began pulling up new analysis programs. If I'm right, then we need to stop thinking like engineers and start thinking like linguists. For the next several hours, they worked together to decode what they now suspected was an alien language more complex than anything either species had encountered. Marcus contributed his knowledge of human linguistics and pattern recognition, while Zix-9 provided sensory input that no human could match. Gradually, they began to see structure in the chaos. These harmonic progressions repeat every 12 cycles, Zix-9 noted. But each repetition includes slight variations, as if the message is being refined or elaborated upon. Like a story being told with increasing detail, Marcus agreed. Or a lesson being taught with growing complexity. He paused, struck by a sudden thought. Zix-9, what if this isn't just a message? What if it's a test? A test of what? Of whether a species is ready to receive whatever knowledge the artifact contains. Think about it. The patterns are complex enough that it would take advanced technology and sophisticated analysis to even recognize them as patterns. But more than that, it would require cooperation between different perspectives to fully decode them. Zix-9 was quiet for a long moment, processing this idea. You suggest that the artifact requires collaborative effort to unlock its secrets? I suggest that maybe the real test isn't whether we're smart enough to understand the technology. Maybe it's whether we're wise enough to work together. Marcus looked at his alien companion. Neither of us could have gotten this far alone. I couldn't hear the music, and you couldn't analyze the quantum patterns. But together we begin to comprehend something beyond either of our individual capabilities. Zix-9 moved closer to the artifact, its expression thoughtful. This would explain why the hegemony fears human involvement. If the artifact requires cooperation between species, then humanity's willingness to work with others might be seen as a threat to established power structures. Or it might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Marcus pulled up a new screen showing the pattern analysis they had developed together. Look at this. We've identified 17 distinct layers of information, each one more complex than the last. If this really is some kind of test or teaching device, then we're just scratching the surface. What do you think the complete message might contain? Knowledge that could change everything. Scientific principles we haven't discovered, technologies we can't imagine, philosophical insights that could reshape how we understand the universe. Marcus paused, feeling the weight of possibility. Or it could be a warning about dangers we haven't encountered yet. Zix-9 picked up the deactivated weapon it had set aside hours earlier, but instead of reactivating it, the alien simply stared at it thoughtfully. Dr. Chen, I have a confession to make. When I accepted this assassination mission, I believed I was protecting the galaxy from human recklessness. Now I begin to suspect that I was protecting the hegemony from human potential. What do you mean? The hegemony maintains order through careful control of information and technology. They decide which species are ready for certain discoveries, which civilizations are permitted to advance, and which innovations are too dangerous to allow. But what if their judgments are based on fear rather than wisdom? Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. You're talking about a conspiracy to suppress technological advancement. I'm talking about the possibility that the galaxy's ruling council has prioritized stability over progress for so long that they have forgotten the difference between the two. Zix-9 set down the weapon and turned to face Marcus. Your species represents something they cannot control. Genuine curiosity combined with the courage to act on it. And that scares them, terrifies them. Because if humanity succeeds in unlocking the secrets of artifacts like this one, it will prove that the hegemony's careful restrictions are unnecessary. Worse, it might prove that those restrictions have been holding back the entire galaxy's development. Marcus looked at the pulsing artifact with new understanding. So the question isn't whether this device is dangerous. The question is whether the knowledge it contains is dangerous to the people who want to keep things exactly as they are. Precisely. And I suspect that the answer to that question is yes. Zix-9 moved to the laboratory's communication console. Dr. Chen, I believe we need to contact your colleagues. If this artifact truly contains advanced knowledge, and if that knowledge requires cooperative effort to unlock, then we will need help from both our species. Are you sure? Once we involve others, there's no going back. The hegemony will eventually learn what we're doing. The hegemony already knows what we are doing. The only question is whether we will discover the truth before they decide to take more direct action to stop us. Zix-9's large black eyes met Marcus's gaze steadily. I came here to kill you, Dr. Chen. Instead, I have learned to question everything I believed about duty, obedience, and the nature of progress itself. Perhaps it is time for others to learn the same lessons. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding that they were about to cross a line from which there would be no return. Then let's see how many minds we can change. The response to Marcus and Zix-9's joint transmission was immediate and overwhelming. Within 6 hours, the research station was receiving communication requests from scientists across human space, and surprisingly, from several other species within hegemony territory. Word of a human-Kethver collaboration on forbidden technology spread through academic networks like wildfire, attracting attention from researchers who had been quietly questioning the hegemony's restrictions for years. Dr. Sarah Chen, Marcus's former colleague and one of humanity's leading xenolinguists, was among the first to arrive. She materialized in the laboratory via quantum teleporter, her eyes wide with amazement as she took in the sight of Marcus working alongside an alien assassin. Marcus, when I got your message, I thought you'd lost your mind, she said, setting down her equipment cases. But the data you transmitted, those pattern analyses are unlike anything I've ever seen. Sarah, meet Zix-9, Marcus said, gesturing toward his alien companion. They've been instrumental in decoding the artifact's harmonic layers. Zix-9 inclined its head in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of respect among the Kethvar. Dr. Chen, your reputation as a linguist precedes you. We would welcome your expertise in translating what we believe to be an ancient form of mathematical language. Sarah stared at the alien for a moment before breaking into a grin. A polite assassin. Now I've seen everything. She moved to examine the artifact, her professional excitement overriding any lingering concern about the situation. Show me what you found. As they worked to bring Sarah up to speed, more arrivals began materializing in the laboratory. Dr. Kent Vartok, a Zelani quantum physicist who had been studying similar artifacts in secret, appeared with a collection of scanning equipment that made Marcus's instruments look primitive. Shortly after, Professor Yila Ninesongs, a harmonist philosopher whose people specialized in finding meaning in complex patterns, joined their growing team. This is unprecedented, Vartok observed as he examined their findings. Cross-species collaboration on this scale has not occurred since the formation of the hegemony itself. Perhaps that is precisely the problem, Ninesongs replied, her crystalline voice creating harmonics that seemed to resonate with the artifact's own musical patterns. We have allowed political structures to divide us when we should have been learning from each other. Marcus watched in amazement as the team worked together, each species contributing unique perspectives and capabilities that none could have provided alone. The Zelani's quantum manipulation technology allowed them to isolate individual layers of the artifact's information stream. The harmonist's natural ability to perceive mathematical relationships revealed connections that had been invisible to purely analytical approaches. The humans contributed pattern, recognition algorithms, and a willingness to try unconventional approaches that the other species found both alarming and effective. Zix-9 proved to be an invaluable coordinator, its assassin training having given it skills in rapid analysis and tactical thinking that translated surprisingly well to scientific research. More importantly, its presence seemed to give legitimacy to the project in the eyes of the other alien researchers, many of whom had been conditioned to view humans with suspicion. The linguistic patterns are becoming clearer, Sarah announced after 12 hours of intensive work. This isn't just a message. It's an entire library of information, stored in a format that requires multiple forms of intelligence to decode. A library created by whom? Vartok asked. Unknown, but based on the mathematical complexity, we're looking at a civilization that existed millions of years ago. Ninesongs replied. The knowledge contained here predates any known galactic civilization by several orders of magnitude. Marcus pulled up their latest analysis on the main screen. We've identified what appear to be technical specifications for technologies that don't exist in any known database. Faster-than-light communication systems, matter-energy conversion processes, even what might be instructions for creating stable artificial universes. And all of it locked behind linguistic and mathematical puzzles that require cooperative effort to solve, Zix9 added. The ancient civilization that created this artifact designed it specifically to prevent any single species from accessing its secrets. Why? Sarah asked. What's the point of creating knowledge if you're going to make it almost impossible to access? Safety, Marcus realized. They weren't trying to hide the knowledge. They were trying to ensure that only species advanced enough to work together could unlock it. Because knowledge this powerful in the hands of a single species would be catastrophically dangerous. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the laboratory. If Marcus was correct, then the artifact represented a test of galactic civilization's readiness for advanced knowledge. And the fact that it required cross-species cooperation suggested that the ancient creators understood something about the dangers of technological advancement that modern civilizations had forgotten. The hegemony's restrictions may not be entirely wrong, Vartok said quietly. If this knowledge is as powerful as it appears, then limiting access might indeed be the safer course. But they're limiting it for the wrong reasons, Nine Songs countered. They restrict based on political considerations rather than actual readiness. They maintain control through ignorance rather than promoting the cooperation that true readiness requires. Zix9 had been quiet during this exchange, but now it spoke with an intensity that surprised everyone. I have spent my life believing that order and safety required strict hierarchies and unquestioning obedience. But watching this collaboration, seeing what we can accomplish when we combine our different strengths instead of competing with them, I begin to understand what the ancient civilization was trying to teach. Which is, Marcus asked, that true strength comes not from dominance but from partnership, that the greatest discoveries require not just intelligence but wisdom, and that wisdom can only develop through the kind of cooperation that breaks down the barriers between species. Sarah looked around the laboratory at their diverse team. So what do we do now? We've proven that cross-species cooperation can unlock incredible knowledge. But we've also proven that the hegemony's worst fears about uncontrolled access to advanced technology might be justified. We continue, Marcus said firmly, but we do it the right way. We form a real partnership between our species. We share the knowledge we discover. We make decisions collectively about how to use what we learn, and we prove that the galaxy is ready for the next step in its evolution. The hegemony will never allow it, Vartok warned. They will see this as a direct threat to their authority. Then we make sure they understand that we're not trying to threaten anyone, Nine Song said. We're trying to save everyone. Because if this artifact contains the knowledge I think it does, then we're going to need every bit of wisdom and cooperation we can muster, just to handle it safely. Zix9 moved to the communication console. Dr. Chen, with your permission, I would like to contact my superiors. Not to report your elimination, but to invite them to join our collaboration. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Are you sure that's a good idea? I am sure that it is the only idea that has a chance of success. The Kethvar are not the only ones with doubts about the hegemony's methods. There are others who question whether absolute control is truly the path to galactic stability. And if you're wrong, Zix9 looked at the artifact, its pale blue skin reflecting the crystal's eternal glow. Then we will face the consequences together. But I believe it is time for the galaxy to choose between fear and hope, and I choose hope. The hegemony's response came exactly 18 hours after Zix9's transmission. A massive fleet of warships materialized around the research station, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. The message that followed was delivered by High Counselor Thexmar himself, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Research Station Galileo 7. You are harboring stolen technology and conducting unauthorized experiments. Surrender the artifact immediately, or face the consequences of defying the galactic order. Marcus stood in the laboratory surrounded by his diverse team of researchers, watching the fleet deployment on the main screen. Despite the overwhelming show of force outside, he felt strangely calm. The past week of collaboration had changed him in ways he was still discovering. And one of those changes was an unshakable confidence in the rightness of what they were doing. High Counselor Thexmar, Marcus replied, through the communication system. I am Dr. Marcus Chen, and I would like to invite you aboard our station to see what we've discovered. I believe it will change your perspective on the importance of cooperative research. Dr. Chen, you are in no position to make invitations. You have 47 minutes to surrender the artifact and submit to judgment for your crimes against galactic stability. Zix-9 stepped forward to the communication console. Hi, Counselor, this is Agent Zix-9. I request permission to make a full report on my findings during this mission. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus could almost feel the shock rippling through the hegemony fleet as they processed the fact that their own assassin was apparently collaborating with the target. Agent Zix-9, Thexmar's voice finally came back, cold with controlled fury. Explain your failure to complete your assigned mission. I have not failed, High Counselor. I have discovered that our mission parameters were based on incomplete information. The threat we were sent to eliminate does not exist. Instead, I have found something far more significant. Report. Zix-9 looked around the laboratory at the team they had assembled, drawing strength from their presence. The artifact is not a weapon or a dangerous technology. It is a teaching device created by an ancient civilization to test whether younger species are ready for advanced knowledge. The test requires cooperative effort between multiple species to decode the information contained within. Impossible. The Kethvar work alone. I worked alone for 17 years, High Counselor, but in 7 days of collaboration with humans and other species, I have learned more about the universe than in all my previous missions combined. The ancient civilization that created this artifact understood something we have forgotten, that true advancement requires partnership, not dominance. Marcus stepped forward. High Counselor, we've unlocked approximately 12% of the artifact's information content. What we've found includes technologies that could revolutionize energy production, medical treatment, and space travel. But more importantly, we've found philosophical frameworks that explain how to use such technologies safely. The safety of galactic civilization is the hegemony's responsibility, not yours. With respect, Nine Songs interjected, her crystalline voice carrying across the communication link. The safety of galactic civilization is everyone's responsibility, and the evidence suggests that true safety comes from cooperation, not from control. Dr. Vartok activated his quantum manipulation equipment. High Counselor, we are transmitting a sample of our research data to your fleet. I ask that you examine it with an open mind before making any irreversible decisions. The data transmission took several minutes, during which the laboratory fell silent except for the soft humming of equipment and the eternal pulsing of the artifact. Marcus found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. A week ago, he had been a lonely researcher studying an incomprehensible piece of ancient technology. Now he was part of something larger, something that might reshape the entire galaxy's approach to knowledge and cooperation. The data you have transmitted is intriguing, Thexmar finally admitted, but it does not change the fundamental risk of allowing unrestricted access to advanced technology. We're not advocating unrestricted access, Sarah said. We're advocating cooperative access. The ancient civilization built safeguards into this knowledge that prevent any single species from misusing it. The real restriction isn't political control, it's the requirement for wisdom that can only come from working together. And what happens when species disagree about how to use this knowledge? Then they discuss it until they reach a consensus, Marcus replied. That's what cooperation means. It's messier than absolute authority, but it's also safer because it prevents any single perspective from dominating the decision-making process. Zix-9 moved closer to the communication console. High Counselor, I request permission to bring a small delegation from your fleet aboard the station. Let them see what we have accomplished through partnership. Let them experience the kind of breakthrough that becomes possible when different forms of intelligence work together, instead of in isolation. Another long silence. Marcus could imagine the debates taking place on the hegemony ships, as leaders accustomed to absolute control tried to process the idea that their carefully maintained order might be less effective than the chaos of cooperation. Very well, Thexmar finally said. I will send a small team to evaluate your claims, but understand that if we determine the risk to galactic stability is too great, we will take whatever action is necessary to protect the greater good. Understood, Marcus replied. but I think you'll find that the greater good is far better served by embracing the future than by trying to control it. As the hegemony delegation prepared to board the station, Marcus looked around at his team one more time. Humans, Kethvars, Ilani, Harmonists, and others all working together toward a common goal. It wasn't perfect. There had been disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of frustration as different ways of thinking clashed and merged. But it was real cooperation, the kind that the ancient artifacts seemed designed to encourage. Whatever happens next, Marcus said to his colleagues, we've already proven something important. We've shown that the barriers between our species are artificial, that cooperation is possible, and that the universe holds wonders we can only discover together. Zix-9 nodded, its large black eyes reflecting the artifact's blue glow. We came here as enemies and became partners. Perhaps that transformation is the real message the ancient civilization wanted to leave behind. The docking tube sealed with a soft hiss as the hegemony delegation boarded the station. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as he prepared to show them what cooperation could accomplish. The future of galactic civilization might depend on whether they could open their minds to a new way of thinking about knowledge, power, and progress. Well, Sarah said with a smile that mixed determination with hope, let's change the galaxy. As the delegation entered the laboratory and caught their first glimpse of the diverse team working around the ancient artifact, Marcus saw something in their expressions that gave him cause for optimism. It was the same look he had seen in Zix-9's eyes a week ago, the dawning realization that everything they thought they knew about the universe might be about to change. The artifact pulsed with its eternal blue light, patient as always, waiting for the next species to discover what cooperation could accomplish. And for the first time since finding it, Marcus felt confident that the galaxy was finally ready to learn.